Roxo Media House.
Welcome into our Frogs Today recruiting special here on this early signing day. We've got you covered up now as we talk a little TCU football, get you ready for next year already, even though we got a lot of Fiesta Bowl talk we're going to be doing here over the next 7 days. Reason being is big day for Coach Sonny Dykes. The ratings still coming in, rankings I should say, as to where this class stacks up. Needless to say, David Beaudin, this one's going to be in that upper echelon of the Big 12.
Yeah, there's no question. It's really heated up as of late. And, I think the momentum, obviously, from the season, everything that we've been doing since Coach Dykes and the staff has arrived, really culminating in today. You see the fruits of their labor paying off.
You talked about how it heated up late. There were some guys that entered the picture late as well. And I think one thing that this staff does a really good job of is vetting them, not only to see if they're good players, but to make sure they fit into this culture now that they've created.
Yeah, there's no doubt. They do their homework. They make sure they talk to the right people. They get in these hallways and start talking to, the hardworking people serving lunch, to the custodians. And they've talked about this stuff on how that matters, and that really defines somebody's character, right? You talk to a high school coach, he's sort of obligated to speak highly of these guys, but they get in there and do their homework. And then, I think the other part of it is even if they're out on somebody early, they've continued to foster those relationships. And so then all of a sudden when the Frogs come in and they have it the year like they have, now they're in a position where they can land some of these guys.
Yeah, because of the transfer portal, which is a new dynamic now in college football recruiting. You've been a part of the recruiting process for 30 years, but you haven't seen anything like this before.
No, it is truly, everyone talks about when it's going to become the wild, wild west. Well, we're in it.
Yeah.
Guns are, bullets are flying.
Yeah.
And so you gotta adapt, you gotta adjust, and the Frogs have done that. And they've embraced it. I think, talking to Jeff Jordan, who handles, is director of player personnel, he said, look, had we not done the work prior to the portal opening, they'd be drowning. But they for months they've been mining the portal, kind of, just seeing what they thought's going to pop up and who's going to enter, and so that by doing that, all of a sudden they were prepared when the portal opened up.
Yeah, just so you know, there are over 1,900 Division I football players in the portal as we speak. That first 2 days, over 700 hit it, right?
Yeah, they did, and it was just racking up all day, and then obviously it's continued. But part of that's kind of sad too, right? Because there's a lot of these guys that had a home who are going to end up without one, and certainly not at the level they were at. So I think at some point, now the other thing you're hearing now, Brian, is you listen to some of these Group of Five coaches that coming out publicly saying, look, we can't sustain this. We're getting guys who aren't in the portal, people are poaching it and all that kind of stuff, and reaching out and tampering, and that hasn't happened here at TCU, and they've done things the right way and above board, but they've done a really nice job figuring it out.
Yeah, some of those schools that are not in the Power Five, as you said, those Group of Five schools, they almost feel like they're coaching at a junior college right now. You get them for 1 or 2 years, you develop them, then all of a sudden they leave. The sad news is, and David talked about this, you look back at the numbers from last year, at the number of guys that hit the portal and ended up playing a division down. And I shouldn't just say division down, but they played a conference down, or they played at lesser schools because they didn't do their homework. And I think the onus is on the student athlete as well to make sure they do that.
It is, and and then also the people they surround themselves with, and getting advice from a third uncle back home, right, who may not fully understand the process, and so it's obviously it's on them. It always is, because you got to take responsibility for yourself, but you also have to listen to the right people, And I think the recruiting's got to go back to those relationships with their high school coach and guys they trust, because they have a better beat on what's going on out there.
Yeah. All right. The other thing that has been, it's not nearly as simple as it used to be. We had a 2 deep. We knew when guys were seniors. We knew when they were out of here. You knew who you had to replace. You knew where some of the problem spots were in recruiting. Not so much now because of the COVID year and things of that nature. You don't know where guys fall eligibility-wise.
Yeah, I think we'd like to think we cover this stuff as closely as anyone. And I'll be honest with you, I'm lost.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how much eligibility is left, who's really a senior, who's a super senior,
right?
So that's been the struggle. I know it is for the staffs as well, just trying to get, to hear from these guys on what their plans are and start, not putting pressure on them, but just just having those honest conversations, because just to be fair to the student, but they also have to be fair to the program, right? And they have a roster to build and to maintain, and so I think those conversations are ongoing, but some things have to really kind of some decisions have to be made here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, finally, position groups. What were some of the key ones for this recruiting class?
Yeah, I think defensive line, it needed to be addressed, and it was in a big way.
The hardest position to recruit, by the way, right now, isn't it?
There's no question. Yeah, just to find those guys that have the size but the athleticism to run to the ball, because obviously, as you know, this Joe Gillespie defense is one that is constant movement, right? You have to have the size and be able to stop the run, and sometimes take on double teams, but you have to be able to run to the football. You have to be able to stunt and twist and do all those things that Coach Gillespie likes to do, and they found some guys for sure. Marcus Deal was a big get for these guys out of Naaman Forest High School, the Forest Rangers.
Right.
So he's a guy that I know Coach Ricker on the offensive side, the offensive line coach, is still politicking to try to get on the other side, just because he'd love to have an athletic guy like that who played both ways. Out there. So that was a big get for them today.
Hang on. Don't give me the rest of them. Right. That's your first tease. That was the first name that David Beaudin's giving you there. So we're going to dive into position groups. Yes. All right. So we're going to start with that defensive line. Then we're going to kind of run down priorities as to what was in this recruiting class, what Coach Sonny Dykes and his group wanted to achieve, and we break down each one of these players with video. All right. Coaches started to break down some of their high school highlights, and you'll get to see that by position group when we continue with Frogs Today after this timeout.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime, and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Welcome back into the Flying T Club studios. It is our recruiting special here from Frogs Today, the early signing day for Coach Sonny Dykes. All right, we kind of set the table for you as to what the overall agenda for this class was. Now it's time to get specific, and we've got our man Coach David Beaudin here to help us break down these guys. It's a big class, a lot of players in this class, a lot of talent. What we've decided to do is break it down by position group for you. The number one priority for this team in this early signing period was the defensive line. And they've solved some issues there, David.
Yeah, for sure. We mentioned Deal earlier, and I think just to back up for a second, the change in rules really helped TCU for where they're at right now. Before, you can only sign 25 guys per class regardless of anything now, and have 85 guys on scholarship max, as you know, Brian. So, but now the 85 just has to stay the same. If you happen to, if it takes 30 guys to get there, whatever it takes, and I think that helps a lot because of how fluid this thing is with transfers. So they got Deal that we talked about at defensive line, Avion Carter out of Amarillo, Tascosa High School. He's a guy in West Texas that was playing out on the edge. Maybe really good program, but not necessarily the same amount of speed that you see out here in DFW.
Right.
So he'll move inside, or at the very least play the 4-eye or play 5 technique sort of in this 3 down front. I think it's a really good fit for him. He sits at 6'4", 260. Really gets after the ball, and he's got a great personality. He's a guy that TCU beat out Texas Tech for, which is obviously a lot closer. And he's got a little brother that he's trying to groom to become a football player as well. Really looks up to him. Neat kid. We had him in studio over the summer. And then Zachary Chapman is a guy that he's more of a true edge guy. A lot of length. Truly 6'5". He's listed at that. He's all a 6'5". About 250 from Fort Bend Marshall High School. Great program, as everyone knows, in Missouri City, Texas. So he's a big pickup today as well. He gains a lot of ground in his first few steps, right? Okay. All of a sudden he comes off the ball just because he's so long. And then out on a true edge guy out of Tyler, Texas, Chapel Hill High School.
Chapel Hill.
Yep, Kavion Huddleston. He's a guy as well that's got a lot of length. He's 6'4", but he's 235. runs really well to the football.
Sounds like that was an objective in this group, to kind of get taller as well as, size-wise. I mean, guys batting balls down, we see that in the league, and that has been an area where TCU over the years has not had, those 6'4", 6'5" defensive ends, right?
Yeah, I think in the past, especially in that 4 down, they've taken guys that maybe were a tick under in height or some area where they had. Now, honestly, TCU is in that upper echelon and recruiting with the big boys now at an elite level.
All right, let's dive right into this defensive line now. Here's Coach David Beaudin breaking down their individual tape for you.
Avion Carter is a one-man wrecking crew and does a tremendous job striking would-be blockers, defeating blocks, and getting to the football. The 6'4", 260-pound defensive lineman has been playing out on the edge in a 4-down defense in West Texas. However, the Amarillo Tascosa High School product will be moving to a more natural 3-down end where he can use his strength and physicality playing inside versus tight end sets. In addition to his size, Carter is able to maximize his strengths in TCU defensive coordinator Joe Gillespie's defense by constantly moving and beating slower offensive linemen off the ball. Carter does a great job making himself skinny, especially when knifing on inside moves in pass rush. He gets off the ball with a great first step and has a really nice rip move as part of his pass rush repertoire. In addition to rushing the passer, Carter can line up at all 3 spots along the defensive line, gets great extension, locking his arms to get off blocks, and plays with unbridled intensity. Large defensive linemen that are well put together and possess this type of quickness are hard to find. TCU found one, and they sure are glad they got Avion Carter's signature today.
Marcus Deal, the 6'1.5", 290-pounder from Namath Forest High School in Garland, Texas. This guy just recently committed the 3rd week in November. It was a big one. He's a tremendous athlete for his size. He's got great form, and I bet you he's won some big man relays during the track season. But you're going to want to check this one out.
See the big fella here lined up at what is his more natural position, though he does line up on the edge as well as offensive tackle for the Forest Rangers. He uses his hands really well with the swim move here and is able to have the concentration and athleticism to bat the ball in the air, track it, and come up with a pretty nice return. Here, you see Deal lined up at the end, and he shows off his technique by properly getting his hands on the guard to close the gap and redirecting to find the ball carrier for a tackle for a loss. On the very next play of his junior season highlight, you see how well Deal closes ground and stays underneath his pads. Simply the way in which he runs may just be the most impressive attribute. This is not something you see very often. Deal lines up in a shade to the side of the offense that is running a simple GH counterplay. He displays great get-off out of his stance and beats the down block, blowing up the puller and not allowing him to get to the edge, which is his responsibility. On top of all of that, he shows off his relentless pursuit to the football. Finally, you can see why TCU offensive line coach A.J. Rickert is continuing to politic to get Deal over on his side of the football. Deal is nasty at the line of scrimmage and loves to finish blocks. Deal is someone that, while versatile, is being recruited as an interior defensive lineman, and that makes great sense. This is a physical football player from DFW that the Frogs are happy to have. Zachary Chapman is all of 6'5", and his length allows him to gain ground in a few steps. Chapman, out of Fort Bend High School in Missouri City, Texas, stays active with his hands, has a great rip move, and is always in pursuit. He does a nice job maximizing his long arms and has shown the ability to lock out defenders to get rid of them. It is a challenge for the big man to play with low pad level, and playing a little higher than he would like has not hindered him one bit in high school. At TCU, Coach McFarland will work on his pad level, and this will be a scary player when he inevitably puts it all together. He does a great job wrapping up players, securing cloth, and wrangling them to the ground. He simply finishes tackles. Chapman is a welcome addition to this Frogs defense. Kavion Huddleston can flat out run. The 6'4", 225-pound defensive end sets up his pass rush with an elite speed rush to begin with and has shown an array of counter moves off of that. Huddleston is someone who can redirect and run flat down the line with the best of them. The Tyler Chapel Hill High School product is not all just speed. He has played offensive tackle as well and has plenty of pancakes on film, giving Frog fans the knowledge that he is tough and will be able to play in a strong 5 technique or play a hybrid type role on the weak side, having the athleticism to drop into the weak flat if need be. My guess is that TCU strength and conditioning coordinator Kaz Kazadi and staff will add some good weight to his frame to keep his hand on the ground. This is an electric pickup for the Frogs.
All right, talented group of defensive linemen headed here to the Horned Frogs, as you saw there. So Jamarcus McFarland, the D-line coach, he's going to have fun with those guys. Now, every day in practice, they get to go up against A.J. Ricker's group, that offensive line. You lose Steve Avila. You lose Alana Lee. There could be a couple of others there that maybe don't return. Again, we go back to the COVID rules and who's going to come back and who's not. So give me some sense as to what they were looking for offensive line-wise.
Yeah, I think really A.J. Ricker, if you asked him, right, he'd say, how many guys you want, is it 16, is it 17? How many guys, old linemen, do you want on your roster? He'll tell you 50.
Right.
So, he's constantly looking for the right ones. But I think they did a nice job of kind of just finding some interior old linemen in this class and out at tackle. And so start off at tackle, they had Benjamin Whitfield out at Duncanville High School, just won a state championship. He's at like 6'5"-ish, 270.
They were on him early, right?
Yeah, they were. And he was a guy that, it's hard for offensive linemen to find sort of that nastiness early in their career. That's the one thing. He's super athletic, kind of a leaner offensive tackle, does a really nice job in pass set. But this is a guy that found that nasty side as well to go along with his athleticism. Really nice combination that the Frogs picked up today.
All right, Coach A.J. Ricker, the offensive line coach. They were a little light last year as far as numbers, but they got lucky because everyone stayed healthy. So
yeah, they were. Yeah, and they got they got some other offensive linemen in this class as well to join those guys, and I think they're going to add to the depth with Cooper Powers is a guy at De La Salle High School. Everybody knows out of California. Yes. They run the ball and he gets underneath people, but he promised me when I talked to him, he said, "Look, I can also pass set. Trust me, I'm good at it." And I'm sure TCU has done their homework there. He can do both. But his brother was a walk-on, Jack Powers, who earned a scholarship, a receiver out here at TCU. So they already had a hook with Cooper. That was a big pickup for the Frogs today as well.
All right, let's break down some tape. Here are the offensive linemen that A.J. Ricker gets to work with right now.
Benjamin Whitfield, the offensive tackle out of recent state champion Duncanville High School, is a lean 6'5", 270 pounds. Whitfield is athletic and bends at the ankle, knees, and hips. He does not bend at the waist and keeps a proud chest and pass protection. Whitfield does a really nice job winning the block when he's out-leveraged by using his good feet and doing a nice job bringing his backside arm through to gain back leverage. Typically, for athletic big men in high school, basketball is the driving force and the nastiness required of the position is not there. For Whitfield, however, he found that part of his game, as you can see, and continually looks to finish blocks to the echo of the whistle. Whitfield still has room to add weight and do so without losing a step. Once this happens, and it will, this is an offensive lineman primed to be elite. Great big man for the Frogs. As you can see, Cooper Powers from Powerhouse De La Salle High School in California is well coached, but he also applied that coaching and plays with great technique to go along with being a road grader. Powers plays with low pad level, snaps down, and gets underneath defenders. He is powerful, driving the opposition into the dirt. Powers does a nice job staying square in double teams and does not come off the down man early, but takes the second level defender at what seems to always be the exact right time. This is a lineman that is devastating in down blocks, smothering defensive tackles. Powers runs well when pulling and locks onto defenders in space, finishing blocks versus even third-level players. Powers has limited pass pro tape, however the reps he does have on film impress. This is a nasty offensive lineman who comes off the ball and moves the line of scrimmage. The Frogs were happy to add a big-time lineman from California here in Fort Worth. Breon Bubba Ramsey Brooks is listed at 6'4", 380 pounds, and he is all of it. One would think at Bubba's size that he would have trouble moving. However, this is a super athletic interior offensive lineman who has been seen dunking a basketball. Bubba gets his hands inside, locks on, and takes defenders for a ride. He uses his hands well and keeps his elbows in tight to maximize his strength. In pass protection, he is aggressive and does a great job jump setting D lineman. In fact, Bubba is aggressive in all that he does. He wants to finish every single block, and for those who love offensive line play, this is a fun film to watch. The Frogs' offensive line has improved today with Bubba Ramsey Brooks. Colorado Big Mike Stoker is listed at 6'5", 305 pounds, and has earned the nickname Big Mike. Stoker uses his offhand and pass pro well to swat defenders' hands and win that battle. Any chance he can, he looks to finish off blocks and punish the opponent. Originally committed to SMU, Stoker got to know the TCU staff for the first time over in Fort Worth. This offensive lineman has combined the athleticism of a tackle with the power of an interior lineman. He has played both tackle spots for South Oak Cliff next to line mate Bubba Ramsey Brooks. Stoker is able to deliver quite the initial strike, but follows it up by getting his feet underneath him and finishing things off. He will be a valuable part of this Frog offensive line moving forward after signing today.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Welcome back into our early signing day special here from Frogs. Today we're in the Flying T Club studios. We got Coach David Beaudin doing extra duty for us here today as we break down this class for the Horned Frogs, the 2023 signees for Coach Sonny Dykes. A lot of names here to go through and a lot of video for you to watch. Hope you're enjoying it. We're going to dive right into a couple of to me, one of the priorities in this offseason had to be linebacker. And I tell you why, because you went from a 4-2-5 to a 3-3-5, so automatically you got one more out there on the field. And that was the one real depth concern all season, especially when you got a couple of guys dinged up.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, they had to get some depth. I mean, they've been really just paper thin all year, especially with, like you said, with a couple injuries there. But look at Kylan Salter out of Cedar Hill High School. He was one really kind of a neat story because he was injured his senior year. His brother was Kylan Salter, big-time quarterback that went to Tennessee. Yes. Now has transferred to Liberty since. But he's a guy that arrives violently at the line of scrimmage. But he had a big injury, blew out a knee early, so he was out. And really, he credited TCU because they stayed on him. They cared about him as a person and him going through that, and they kept his scholarship offer, and it paid off because they're going to get one heck of a linebacker there. They also got Max Carroll. He's a guy at Briarcrest High School in Memphis.
Okay.
He had a relationship with Anthony Jones Jr.,
Gotcha.
The running back coach here at TCU, who obviously came over from Memphis. Max has lined up everywhere. He's lined up from quarterback to safety to linebacker, but he's a guy that's going to be a big guy, I think, in the middle of this defense for years to come. And so he's at 6'3", about 205. But runs really well. Obviously a phenomenal athlete. I think he's going to be a cornerstone in this class and really for this defense.
Then I'm going to hit you on one other position group real quick, and we'll kind of put these together on film for you. So you get to see the linebacker group coming in, but also they signed one running back. And you mentioned Anthony Jones, so I'm going to loop those in if you don't mind. Obviously, you lose Amari DiMaccardo. We don't know the status of Kendre Miller. You hope that he returns. You got Amani Bailey back, obviously. You got Trent Battle, but they signed another one, right?
They did, and they got Cameron Cook, and he is a stud, 4-star running back. He's, to me, this is the next in line of these great TCU running backs. Hate to put that on a kid so early, but I mean, they beat out a lot of blue blood programs for this guy, and they got a chance over the summer to get his commitment. I made that official today, but I think he's a guy. He's out of Round Rock High School, right. Have a lot of good players. But man, his film is a lot of fun to watch. You'll be able to check that out here as well. And getting back to those linebackers really quick though, on the other side, because I think this is an interesting one. Jonathan Bax is a kid out of New Orleans, and he had no Power 5 offers before the TCU camp this summer, right? Came in, he had 2 weeks. He's been an edge guy at Edna Karr High School, big-time program in New Orleans. But, he came in, trained to play linebacker for 2 weeks, came to camp, impressed everybody. They offered him as a linebacker. And really, they've been trying to fend off, kind of hoping that, LSU didn't come in. They were kind of, in play there for a little while. But I think a lot of schools saw him as an undersized edge guy. So he was late in the recruiting process for the big-time schools. TCU, to me, that's the steal of this class, landing Jonathan Bax today, because I think he's going to grow up to be a really special one.
All right, so Jonathan and Cameron both decide that purple blood's better than blue blood.
That's right.
I got it. All right, let's break these linebackers and that running back down for you right now.
Kylan Salter, the linebacker out of Cedar Hill High School, arrives with a purpose at the line of scrimmage time and time again. He shows great maturity in his patience and knows just when to trigger to make the play. And when he does, look out. This is a player that sometimes takes false steps, meaning not with the proper play side foot, and can tend to hop a little at the snap. I say this to point out that once he fixes a small detail, and he certainly will, the sky is the limit for this player. This is a young man who loves football and plays the game the way it should be played. He is a big hitter that will create some takeaways for the Frogs and have some wild type hits in Avion Carter Stadium. Amazing pickup for the Frogs as they kept this thumping linebacker home in the Metroplex. Jonathan Bax, the linebacker out of powerhouse prep program Edna Carr High School of New Orleans, is a student athlete full of passion for the game. As we discussed, Bax is a player who put everything he could into training to play the linebacker position. As you can see here on film, as we take a look at his junior season highlights, he played the bulk of his high school career as an edge rusher, mainly at defensive end. Bax has tremendous flexibility and can run the hoop, as they say, meaning he can bend to create less surface area to be blocked. Bax's love for the game comes out when you speak with him, but also through his effort on film. By playing against tackles much larger than him on the line of scrimmage, Bax has learned how to get off blocks, which will serve him well from his linebacker position. This is a player with explosive hips and plays bigger than his 6'2", 225-pound listing. Bax changes direction really well, and all of these skills will translate well for a young man who bet on himself to change positions. The payoff for him is big, with a chance to join the number 3 ranked team in the country, and the payoff for TCU can and will be big as well. Carroll is shown here hustling down the field. It is reminiscent of Patriots tight end Ben Watson running down Champ Bailey in a divisional playoff game in Denver back in 2006. This is the type of effort you love to see from your star players and really sets the tone for a team. Carroll covers a lot of ground quickly, is always looking for the strip, and when he has the ball in his hands, is really tough to bring down. As a linebacker, he will come in as an upper-level player in coverage based on his experience playing safety. However, he is a sure tackler, an impressive athlete for a 6'3", almost 210-pounder. Carroll will be very versatile in Joe Gillespie's defense with the ability to play deep down the middle in a Tampa look, run sideline to sideline as a linebacker, or even play on the edge versus some sets with the size to hold his own.
Cameron Cook, the running back. As we mentioned, this guy's got a real chance to be pretty special in that long line of TCU running backs. Take a look at his quickness, the way he avoids would-be tacklers. This guy's going to be fun in a Horned Frog uniform.
Where he is most impressive is his twitchiness, ability to jump cut and sidestep a defender, then immediately get vertical. Cook also does a really nice job of constantly staying square to the line of scrimmage and only taking on half a man when making contact with the defender. In addition, this is a running back that will get to the edge, but is always looking to make the cut to get upfield. Cook has the power to finish runs, combined with the speed to take it the distance. This is a running back that can stop on a dime and get back to full gear in a hurry. Cook is someone that is a weapon in the pass game and holds his own in pass protection, both critical and consistent to what the TCU running backs have showed this past season. He has shown maturity in pressing the line of scrimmage and showing patience before cutting back. This allows linebackers to get over the top and get sucked up by blockers, which allows Cook to work his magic in the open field. Exciting times for Cook to enter TCU, and the youngster should have an opportunity to get on the field quickly for the Frogs.
Simply the best barbecue in Fort Worth. Dine in, catering, or drive-through. 2900 Montgomery, just off I-30. Remember, the best barbecue in Fort Worth is at Railhead Smokehouse.
Signing Day special continues here on Frogs Today. On this early signing day, Sonny Dykes has put together a terrific class, an impressive class. One of the priorities going into this one had to be at wide receiver. And I'm just going to put you on the spot here because we don't know who's back. Right. We think Tay Barber, Darius Davis, due to eligibility issues, the fact that, COVID, they've run that year out. Those two guys are gone. We don't know about Quentin Johnston. A lot of folks are saying he's a first-round draft pick.
Sure.
Jared Wiley at tight end, another question as far as, that COVID year, what does that mean? So if all that were to happen, you got some holes to fill.
Yeah, you do. And we all, by all accounts, Quentin Johnston hasn't made it official,
right.
But as a first-round talent, you'd like to think that that's probably where he's headed.
Sure.
But, they picked up Cordell Russell, a kid out of North Mesquite High School, as that outside receiver spot. He's 6'2", just a little over 200 pounds, but uses his body really well. What I love about him, and we'll see it on tape here soon, is that, as the ball's coming, he'll bring his backside hip to the ball. A lot of guys, when they leap, they fade away from it. He's a guy that goes up and gets it, real physical guy. In addition to that, he's been a real mouthpiece for this recruiting class. They got him to, get in the boat a little bit earlier, and he's really been doing a great job doing some recruiting of his own.
I like that.
Especially in the DFW area. Yeah. And then you see at the slot position, the best comp I can give for Jordan Bailey, a kid out of Denton Ryan. Of course, we're familiar with his brother, Amani Bailey, the running back that they got in from Louisiana transfer. He played at Denton Ryan as well. But the best comp I can for Jordan is Darius Davis, right? A guy who's and again, big shoes to fill, Brian, right?
Yeah.
But he's a guy that can get lined up in the slot. He's a return guy, and you can't tackle him in a phone booth.
All right, let me ask you this because I'm going to learn a little football here. You talked about that front hip or the back hip getting to the football. Is that the same as high pointing a football?
It is, yeah. But the key is your upfield hip, right, as you're running the ball, has to go back to the football in order to high point it, right?
Got it.
A lot of guys just think when you leap up, you actually fade away from the ball. That's how a lot of DBs make plays on the football. So, he's a guy that does this really well. And it takes two things. It takes, some understanding of that, right?
Yes.
But also you have to have the strength to do that. It takes a lot of strength to have all your momentum, full speed going one way and bring that hip back the other way. He has that at the high school level. He's going to be a fun guy to watch here at TCU.
All right, you get to see it right now. Here's a breakdown of those wide receivers in this recruiting class for Sonny Dykes.
Jordan Bailey, a slot receiver out of Denton Ryan High School, is the brother of current TCU running back Amani Bailey. Jordan has all the impressive track times you want in a slot receiver and kick returner. However, even more impressive is his quickness in watching the leg turnover as he runs and getting in and out of breaks in a hurry. Bailey is the perfect guy to throw quick screens and now throws too. He is someone that is dynamic in the kick return game and does not need blockers in front of him to make guys miss. His burst is phenomenal, and he is not a player that wastes much time going side to side. Rather, he wants to get up the field to gain yards fast and will be a blast to watch while donning purple.
Cordell Russell from North Mesquite High School. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, and he already possesses the size and strength of a big-time college football receiver. And this one's going to be a fun film to watch. Go ahead and check this out.
Here you can see that strength we were referring to as Russell goes up to high point this football and snatches it over two defenders. He shows off how powerful his hands are to rein this one in, but also notice his jumping ability. As he goes up, he is not fading away from the ball. Rather, he brings his back hip to the football when leaping. This is mature and strong for a prep receiver. More of the same here for Russell. Running the sail route into the end zone, he maximizes his big frame by shielding defenders to go up and get the football in competitive situations. Russell is not making all of his plays by jumping for the ball. Here, he shows off his catch and run ability by taking this tunnel screen inside the initial block and then alertly getting right back outside. Notice how he immediately gets vertical and in smooth stride and speed takes care of the rest. Speaking of getting vertical, here Russell stays square to the ball in the air and is able to field the punt cleanly in traffic. After sidestepping two players from the punt team, he's able to get into the end zone by taking the ball up the field as opposed to running to the sideline like many high school players in this position. Cordell Russell is a big-time playmaker that is always a threat to score with the ball in his hands. Look for Russell to make lots of noise coming over from the west side of the Metroplex to here in Fort Worth. Favian Fluellen is a track star. Oftentimes, this could be somewhat of a negative when talking about a football player. However, as you can see, Fluellen is a football player through and through. A two-way starter for Gilmer High School, Fluellen has the fast twitch to match the breakaway track speed. As he showed on defense, he also brings a level of toughness to TCU inside receivers coach Doug Meacham's room. Fluellen was being recruited as a cornerback by multiple schools, and many recruiting sites have him listed on that side of the ball. However, Coach Meacham has been an advocate for Fluellen on the offensive side, and here you can see why. The defensive mentality also shows up with Fluellen over the middle, and he does a nice job using his body while making tough catches in traffic. Fluellen will also be a factor in the return game for TCU, and the Frogs are fired up to lock in Rowan Fluellen. Lafayette Kiowa is a confident player, and for good reason. The 6'5" Arlington Sam Houston product will go up and get the football. In addition to his large catch radius, running seam routes from his tight end position, Lafayette has shown the ability to track the ball nicely, making over-the-shoulder catches and adjusting to the football. This is a young man that has lined up at receiver as well and looks the part. Additionally, he has shown the rare ability for a guy with his pass-catching abilities to also line up in line at tight end and get movement on defenders. This is a player that will present matchup problems for defenses by lining up on the ball in an H-back position, as a single receiver, or even as number 3 in a trip set. Players like Lafayette Kiowa give defensive coordinators nightmares because an offense can keep the same personnel on the field while lining up in multiple sets. This signee is a real luxury for offensive coordinator Garrett Riley and staff.
Some big shoes to fill in that wide receiver room, obviously, but it looks like the Horned Frogs have done okay with that group that Sonny Dykes has put together. Another primary concern for this team was, really you can't have enough of these guys, was a defensive back. I mean, you need a whole bunch of numbers there for Joe Gillespie's defense, don't you?
You're right. You talked earlier, about linebacker and how
Yes.
they added a position. Well, you look at the straight numbers, you would think it'd be the same. In the 4-2-5 that was here for so long, there's obviously 5 defensive backs. The 3-3-5 is of course 5 defensive backs.
Right.
However, it's a little bit different player, right? In that 4-2-5, you had that strong overhang linebacker, nickel type. So it's sort of that hybrid, that we talked about. But here, this one is in Joe Gillespie's defense. 3 guys that have to be extremely versatile at safety. They can have to be able to play on the roof and backpedal. They can spin down and play in the box. They play man coverage. They have to be able to blitz. So those are guys are hard to find. But TCU did a nice job finding not only the numbers in this class, but a heck of a lot of talent.
All right, let's break down some of the film now. These are, it's a big group, defensive backs ready to make an impact for TCU.
Canada puts every skill and technique necessary to be successful at corner at the Power 5 level on film. He can run with anyone, as shown here, returning a kickoff for a touchdown. Beyond this, he shows the ability to play press man, soft man coverage, can backpedal or use shuffle technique. Listed at 6 foot, Canada is a thicker corner who has demonstrated the capacity to set an edge versus a nub tight end and also forces a run on the outside versus a receiver, staying disciplined not to peek inside and strong enough to force the blocker back to shorten the edge on the perimeter. In the return game and ball in his hands, Canada has great balance, not getting knocked off easily. Channing Canada fills an immediate need next season at corner for the Horned Frogs.
Yet another frog in Jamel Johnson from Arlington Wansagine High School. This is a guy who was a longtime Texas commit and then decommitted in early November. 247 Sports predicted he'd go to Ole Miss, but a lot has happened since then, and TCU has been hard at work to get this guy from right down the road coming over Fort Worth. They did just that. He had his official visit last week. Loved it. Loved being around the guys. He had mentioned just the vibe of the current team, the current commits, and the coaching staff was a great fit. TCU got a real good one. Let's take a look.
Johnson has the cover skills of a corner and the physicality of a safety. He runs right through opponents with no hesitation and has immense acceleration. Johnson is also a stud wide receiver, and his ball skills translate on the defensive side of the ball. He is someone that can give some cushion protecting against the deep ball in man coverage, yet closes so fast that he does not risk getting 3-step to death. In addition to his natural ability playing man, Johnson stays disciplined in not looking back at the quarterback and leaning and looking as the receiver looks for the ball. This is a tough discipline to put on film consistently in high school, but Johnson is able to do it time and time again. Some players just have inherent instincts that puts them around the ball constantly, and Johnson is one of those players. This is a complete player who is a giant win for TCU, ultimately beating out what once was a lock to the Longhorns.
Randon Fontant, yet another safety signed out of Freeport Brazosport High School. This guy here just committed last week, and the Frogs got a good one. Go ahead and check this film out.
Randon Fontant is a pure athlete. The former Utah commit out of Freeport Brazosport High School is a basketball player, track star, and his highlight film is littered with quarterback highlights. However, the two-way starter was also a highly productive safety who sits at 6'2", 189 pounds, but really has a frame to add some significant good weight. In addition to being a fluid athlete who makes cuts in stride, Fontanet's experience running a successful offense will lend itself well to him seeing things develop from his safety position. He will also be a lot further ahead than most safeties his age when it comes to his ball skills. Fontanet will be a fun player to watch develop, as he has only scratched the surface for what he is capable of doing, and that will be on display once he is a full-time defensive player. Vernon Glover Jr. out of Dickinson High School had all kinds of offers throughout high school, including multiple blue blood programs. Glover impressed on the camp circuit during the recruiting process because of his pure athleticism. In addition, as you can see here on film, his physicality was a pleasant surprise for a corner, and his stock soared because of it. Glover has played quarterback and has blocked a number of field goals and extra points by unselfishly laying out. Glover shows the cover skills, has laid the big hits, and is also a sound tackler. By playing against some teams in high school that were all tight end sets, he had to set an edge at the line of scrimmage, and he did so really well. Glover is a big pickup for the Frogs, especially when you consider TCU beating out other Texas schools to land his services. Jordan Lester, another safety pledge for the Frogs, this time out of Mesquite Horn High School. Lester is a player that appears to be really heady on the field. He does an excellent job reading 2-to-1 and getting on top of the outside receiver when necessary. Lester is efficient in his pedal, has good closing speed, and continually takes perfect angles to either the ball or the receiver. Lester has shown solid man technique, can play the ball in or out of phase with his receiver, and does a nice job getting in and out of his breaks. He is lined up versus the slot as well as outside receivers and is equally effective versus both. The Frogs got better in the secondary with the addition of Jordan Lester. Avion Wilcox out of Temple Lake Belton High School is a safety commitment the Frogs pulled from Baylor. Originally committed to the Bears, Wilcox announced his decommitment from Baylor in June and committed to the Horned Frogs the very next day. This is a special athlete that shows the rare ability to line up at outside receiver and run away from people with the ball in his hands, and then line up at safety, completely running through the soul of ball carriers. The combination of nastiness, speed, and nose for the football, combined with his frame that is only going to add weight, I feel that Wilcox may find his way to playing at the second level of the defense in short order. In the age of athletic linebackers to match speed on the field, I have to think that Wilcox will find a home there before it is all said and done. Either way, the Frogs landed a special talent with Wilcox today.
That's your group of defensive backs right there for, well, now you got a couple of guys that may need to be impact guys when you look at guys that could leave. Trey Hodges-Tomlinson could leave. Josh Newton could leave. I mean, so you got to kind of wait and see how this thing starts to play out now. But nonetheless, you can see these guys are, as you heard Coach David Beaudin mention, ready-made to come in and fill the gaps. All right, overall, give me your assessment of this class.
I think, the numbers speak for themselves. Of course, the volume. I think it's a large class.
Yeah.
But there's 4-star guys everywhere,
yeah.
And it's really a star-studded class. But I think the one thing, because all the pundits are talking about today what TCU's done in terms of the rankings and all that stuff. But what's most impressive, Brian, we've had a lot of these guys through the studio, and we've met with them and seen them on the recruiting trail and the visits. High character guys, right? Just personable, and that really fits to what this TCU team currently is. So I think it'll be a great culture fit as well as adding all this talent.
Yeah, and we purposely haven't talked about the national ratings because here our editorial board feels like until the transfers are in, till you fully know the class, you really should not grade this class because there's a lot to be done. Transfers still to come. That can go through January, 12-ish or something like that?
Yeah, they have the whole month, really.
Yeah.
So from now, or so the 21st, obviously starting today.
Yep.
Everyone can sign from the senior class, but they have 2 days if you're coming out of high school.
Gotcha.
But if you're a transfer, it starts today and then can go through, like you said, in January.
Yeah, I think it's mid-January some point. So at that point, then you take a look at the national grades, determine where the Horned Frogs stack up. Nonetheless, so you can see this group of high schoolers coming in for the Horned Frogs, impact players in this class, might just stack up as the best in TCU history. Stay tuned for that number later on. For Coach David Beaudin, I'm Brian Estridge. Thanks for joining us here on our early signing day special, recruiting special here from Frogs Today. Don't forget, next week we got full coverage from the Fiesta Bowl. We'll have 5 days of coverage exclusive to Frogs Today down there, so you want to be here for that, including a Friday pep rally. We might get Coach Beaudin in a cheerleader outfit. You never know. For everybody here who helped make this possible, a big thank you and a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you. Stay with us here at Frogs Today and FrogsToday.com. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Most importantly, subscribe to FrogsToday.com and our YouTube page. Have yourself a great night.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at FrogsToday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on FrogsToday.com.
Roxo Media House.